classrooms and labs, loud boiling test tubes, sing to the Lord a new song. In the name of God, creator of heaven and earth, amen. Earth and all stars, our opening hymn this morning, is on that short list of hymns about which few church folk are on the fence. Like, I sing a song of the saints of God, which I also classify as a catalog kind of hymn with a long list of examples and images. Earth and all stars is a selection that almost always inspires post-service feedback. Sappy or profound, childish or embodying a highly evolved theology? Well, yes. Oh, I love this hymn. Don't make us sing that again. I happen to love both of these hymns, Earth and All Stars, I Sing a Song of the Saints of God. Brace yourselves for November 5th. And with Earth and All Stars, it's because of everything the church gives us to sing. This is the hymn that images an immanent God. A God permanently pervading and sustaining the universe. A God all mixed up with our daily lives, even when we don't see God. The loud shouting army imagery seems jarring to me this morning, admittedly. And the use of the masculine pronoun in the refrain seems dated and needlessly delimiting to me. But engines and steel, rustling dry leaves, harp, lute and lyre, limestone, and yes, those test tubes are all pointing us into the heart of the universe, inviting us to widen our daily frame of reference, to glimpse a kind of order to things, and at the same time acknowledge that the scale of this order is infinitely greater than our capacity to grasp, process, or understand it. The man who wrote these words was named Herbert Brokering. Herbert Brokering, a Midwesterner, a Lutheran pastor and teacher and poet. He died in 2009. He was a kind, joyful, generous, creative, industrious man. He also collaborated with no one less than Dave Brubeck. And this is not his best-known hymn. His best-known hymn among our kindred Lutherans includes these words: "Thine the kingdom, thine the prize, thine the wonder, full surprise. Thine the banquet, then the praise. Thine the justice of thy ways. Thine the glory, thine the story, then the welcoming to the least. Then the wonder all increasing at thy feast, at thy feast. Thine. God's. Give therefore to the emperors the things that are the emperors, and to gods the things that are God's, says Jesus this morning to the baffled Herodians and Pharisees. Two factions in a fraught and politically fractious Jerusalem who are attempting to destroy him in different ways. The Herodians are loyal to Rome. So if Jesus were to suggest avoiding taxes, he would then be guilty of sedition. The Pharisees are ostensibly devoted to the God of Israel. So if Jesus were to condone payment to the Roman emperor, Tiberius, portrayed on the denarius along with his mother, Livia, as gods, Jesus could easily be positioned as a heretic. So the question, is it lawful to pay taxes, boils down to, are you a political revolutionary or a sinner against God? Pick one. So Jesus doesn't answer directly. To the emperor that which belongs to the emperor, to God that which is God's. Now, read in isolation, these words might seem very convenient for us. A justifying statement of support for separation of church and state. That feels good, doesn't it? When Jesus is speaking, though, he is only hours away from his trial and execution as a political prisoner. My kingdom is not of this world, he will say. He will also say, all are yours, and yours are mine. In Mark's gospel, he has by now judged the statue of the Roman emperor erected in the court of the Jerusalem temple as a, and these are his words, a desolating sacrilege. Thine the kingdom, thine the prize, thine the wonderful surprise, thine the banquet, then the praise, then the justice of thy ways, thine the glory, thine the story, then the welcome to the least, then the wonder, all increasing, at thy feast, at thy feast. So this is where those test tubes come in. All belong to God. Nothing that is not of God. This is the deep meaning under Isaiah's words this morning as well. They concern another emperor, Cyrus, the emperor of Persia, founder of an empire that spanned almost all of the ancient Near East, about 500 years before the birth of Christ. Part of Cyrus's strategic wisdom, part of the reason some historians view him as a kind of avatar of human rights, is that Cyrus respected and did not outlaw the religions of the regions he conquered. In conquering Babylon, Cyrus has freed the Israelites living in captivity there in Babylon to return to Judah, their homeland. Cyrus, says Isaiah, does not know the God of the Israelites, does not worship the God of the Israelites. And yet, God has anointed Cyrus. This God who creates light and darkness, this God who reigns from the rising of the sun and from the west, is shown to us this morning as a God before whom national and even religious differences begin to pale. It's an astounding moment in the story of the people of God. Isaiah's words about Cyrus. Because whatever political and national identities we can construct is the implication, none are more encompassing or consequential than the image of God stamped into each human person, as surely as the image of Tiberius is stamped onto that coin in Jesus' hand. This is the one reason Jesus has faced the rage of some of his fellow citizens since the beginning of his ministry. He's cut off a road to privilege for some, and this is too much to withstand. You may recall his words in his hometown synagogue in Luke. You're not special, he has told them. You're not privileged. Elijah was sent to feed a widow at Zarephath in Sidon, not an Israelite. In the time of Elisha, no lepers were cleansed except a Syrian, Naaman, not an Israelite. These examples do not, understandably, go over well in his hometown. He's undermining the national pride of the very people who raised him. The implication being that no political configuration, no national identity has a lock on righteousness. The implication being that there is more than a whiff of idolatry to the notion of a Christian nation state. Loud boiling test tubes, earth and all stars. God is too big for any partisan or national box we may be constructing. To God, the things that are God's, says Jesus. All things come of thee, we say, as we prepare here for Eucharist. And of thine own have we given thee. Thine the glory, thine the story, then the welcome to the least. Then the wonder all increasing at thy feast, at thy feast. If you've been in the desert this week about politics, your own and those of others, this other hymn of Herbert Brokering's may hold a lesson for us. In our fraught and frightening world, how do our personal politics, convictions, honor God? The situation in Gaza and Israel, coinciding with partisan disarray in our own House of Representatives, are calling the question for each one of us. The nation of Israel is ringed by nation states and organizations actively working for its destruction. Palestinian Christians and Muslims have lived for decades in Gaza and the West Bank under circumstances that with some justification have been likened to apartheid. When one of our Massachusetts senators called at a public gathering for an end to violence in the region 2 weeks ago, he was roundly booed. Campuses, administrations, hospital administration staffs issuing statements, then revising statements, rancor, resentment. This is the war dynamic at work among us, infecting all of us. Where do we look to at such times? And with whom do we stand? Then the welcome to the least. Perhaps like me, you've been drawn to images of children in the region of Israel, in Gaza, and the West Bank, to images of the aging, to images of a hospital bombed. Where do we stand? One of you suggested to me this past week at our Thursday evening prayer service where exactly we should be standing. She wasn't standing at all. She was kneeling. Right there, kneeling. Not making an argument, simply opening herself to God and praying for the vulnerable of all nations. On our knees. Thine the glory, thine the story, then the welcome to the least. Then the wonder all increasing at thy feast, at thy feast. Standing together, we affirm the ancient faith of our church in the words of the Nicene Creed.